There have always been those who are deniers of history.
Tonight, people remember Murray Sinclair. The man who led the Truth and Reconciliation Commission has died at the age of 73. Who's behind a new billboard campaign in Regina targeting 3 incumbent candidates in the next election?
Riders are heading to Winnipeg.
The Saskatchewan Roughriders advanced to the West Final with a win over BC.
This is CBC Saskatchewan News.
It is Monday, November 4th, and the CBC Saskatchewan News starts right now. Good evening and thank you for watching. Tributes are pouring in across Canada and the political divide for Murray Sinclair. The former lawyer, judge, and senator died this morning at the age of 73. Peacefully and surrounded by loved ones. Sinclair spent much of his life fighting for fairness and justice for Indigenous people. Cameron McIntosh has a look back at his life and legacy.
There have always been those who are deniers of history.
A respected elder and statesman, Murray Sinclair laid the path for reconciliation in Canada.
And this nation must never forget what it once did to its most vulnerable people.
Born in 1951, raised in Selkirk, Manitoba, Sinclair's Anishinaabe name meant the one who speaks of pictures in the sky. He excelled in school, skipping 2 grades, was a star athlete and valedictorian, who went into law, originally aiming to enter politics.
I really became bitten by the law bug.
Racial hurdles were quickly apparent. As a young lawyer dealing with a client, a police officer mistook him for the accused.
He grabbed me by the arm and was going to lead me back to the cells because he assumed the white guy was the lawyer.
In 1988, Sinclair became Manitoba's first ever Indigenous provincial court judge. After a police killing of an Indigenous man, he was co-commissioner of a tension-filled inquiry into racism in Manitoba's justice system. He quickly felt backlash.
An RCMP officer came to my house and said, we have information that a City of Winnipeg police officer has threatened to kill you.
Nothing came of it. Sinclair kept asking hard questions. He rose to Queen's Bench and also led an inquest into the deaths of 12 infants in pediatric care in Manitoba. But it was the 2008 Truth and Reconciliation Commission where Sinclair cast the most light, spending 6 years listening to residential school survivors, uncovering truths he knew many would not want or be able to accept.
And the phrase I used to use with the staff is that we have to write this for the reasonable.
His 94 calls to action have brought some progress, particularly around awareness, but many remain unfulfilled.
The public still largely struggles with the question of what can we do about it.
Shortly after the TRC, he did get that career in politics, appointed as an independent senator in 2016. He served nearly 5 years, a platform he used to promote reconciliation.
I've been involved in the work of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. Why can't you just get over it and move on? And my answer has always been, why can't you always remember this?
He turned down consideration for Governor General, citing a desire to spend time with his family, but was a member of the Order of Canada. Through it all, he became one of Canada's most respected Indigenous voices. A mentor to many, including Manitoba's first Anishinaabe Premier, through his career, Sinclair dealt with countless stories of pain, despair, and racism, but at his core, remained an optimist.
As long as we have that belief in the need to improve the future, then the future will be improved.
Change he acknowledged would be slow, but remained confident is inevitable. Cameron McIntosh, CBC News, Winnipeg.
What an incredible life he lived. Here in Saskatchewan, Sinclair is being remembered for the impact his work with the TRC had for residential school survivors and for future generations.
I was really happy to see that universities and post-secondary institutions took it up and then started to develop courses on history so that Canadians, Indigenous Canadians included, could have the history of our country, the real history, in our curricula. across the country. And that is a massive change.
He went across this country and promoted the truth and reconciliation calls to action. Today, every Canadian and Indigenous person in Canada benefits because of the hard work that him and his team did. Now, today, it's just up to us to make sure we implement it so that Murray's kids and grandkids can succeed in this world for the hard work that he did.
The trial for a Regina area chiropractor charged with multiple counts of sexual assault is set to begin this week. A jury pool of about 90 people assembled at Mosaic Stadium this morning for selection. In the end, 14 people were selected as jurors for the trial of the Emerald Park chiropractor Ruben Mans. Mans is charged with 7 counts of sexual assault. He was first charged after 2 female patients came forward in April of 2021. They filed complaints related to his chiropractic treatments. The allegations stem from 2012 to 2019. The trial will reconvene at Court of King's Bench in Regina starting on Tuesday. Ottawa today released draft regulations that would force Canada's oil and gas producers to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions dramatically over the next 8 years.
Those regulations will help to cut pollution by 35% below 2019 levels, while providing compliance flexibility. In doing so, we will create a cap-and-trade system for the sector. It will reward low-polluting facilities and incentivize higher-polluting facilities to invest. It goes after pollution, not production.
Guilbeault says the oil and gas industry has not done as much as other sectors to reduce its emissions. Experts say the industry emits more than 30% of Canada's total greenhouse gases. This afternoon, a furious Alberta premier said she will challenge the cap in court as soon as possible. Danielle Smith called the draft regulations, quote, a deranged vendetta against Alberta that are unrealistic and will require oil and gas companies to reduce production levels. Now, the regulations may not be implemented if a federal election takes place before they're finalized. The Saskatchewan Roughriders have booked their ticket to the CFL West Division Final. This after beating the BC Lions 28-19 in Saturday's semi-final at home. Ethan Williams has the highlights and reaction.
A spot in Winnipeg awaits the winner.
The Riders' first postseason appearance since 2021 didn't get off to a strong start. The Lions, looking to make their 3rd straight Western Final appearance, got on the board first. QB Vernon Adams Jr. connecting with Javon Catoy for his first touchdown of the season. But by the second quarter, the Riders had tied things up at 6 apiece, and running back A.J. Ouellette put the green and white ahead with this short touchdown run. That wouldn't be Ouellette's only TD of the game. He would add another in the 3rd quarter. It's Ouellette's 2nd game back after being out since mid-August due to a hip injury, and he says it feels good to be healthy for the playoffs.
I knew going into that 6 games where I sat that I just needed to prepare every week like I was going to play, and now it's paying off.
I asked him a couple weeks ago, how you feeling before the previous BC game, and he said I'm feeling good. He goes, they didn't pay me to come here and run in June and July. He goes, they did so I could run in October and November. He's like, let's freaking go.
2 late-game interceptions from Roland Milligan Jr. and Nelson Lacombo sealed the victory for the Riders. Head coach Corey Mace is pleased with his team's performance and says avoiding penalties is now key.
You know, especially with such a disciplined team like Winnipeg, they do very good in making sure that they're not, crossing the line. And every yard counts in the playoffs. So, we're going to have to be dialed in from that standpoint.
The Bombers are looking to win their 5th straight West Final. If the Riders win, it'll be their first Grey Cup trip since they won it in 2013. Kickoff is Saturday at 5:30 in Winnipeg. Ethan Williams, CBC News, Regina.
Well, the Green and White were not the only successful Saskatchewan football team this weekend. The Regina Rams pulling out a 28-25 upset over the first-place Manitoba Bisons in the Canada West semifinals on Saturday in Winnipeg. The Rams sealed it with a TD with just 19 seconds left. Manitoba came in the heavy favorite with a 7-1 record and ranked 7th in the country. The Rams advanced to the Hardy Cup championship game for the first time since 2012. And the Rams will face off against the Saskatchewan Huskies, who also had a dramatic end to their game on Saturday. The Huskies overcame a 13-point fourth quarter deficit in Vancouver to knock off the UBC Thunderbirds 38-33. It sets up the first all-Saskatchewan Hardy Cup in more than 20 years. The team split the season series with the Huskies winning just by 2 points in Week 8. The 87th Hardy Cup kicks off at 1 o'clock Saturday afternoon at Griffith Stadium. Oh, speaking of stadiums, things looking much calmer around Mosaic Stadium today than it was when the Riders pulled off that victory on the weekend, and the weather a little cooler too. Ethan Williams will have more on your forecast after the break, and we'll have some more news too. Stay with us. Welcome back. You might have seen them, ads across Regina and social media calling for a common sense city hall, popping up with just a week until Regina's civic election. Alexander Kwan has more on the mysterious organization behind the messages.
The Regina civic election is almost here, and new billboards have started popping up across the city, targeting 3 incumbent politicians, including Mayor Sandra Masters.
It's like, oh, social media has come to the streets. That's kind of what I mean by social media, because, you can put any handle you want and say anything you want.
It's part of a new campaign by Common Sense Regina, part of a recently formed network of organizations focused on municipal politics. The network's spokesperson lives in Alberta and operates the Alberta Institute, a libertarian think tank.
Because municipal government is doing so many things that aren't their job, they're also doing a bad job at the things that are their job.
McCaffrey says the organization wants a common sense approach to government. That means a focus on potholes and snow removal rather than flashy, non-essential projects. He says Common Sense Regina is led by 6 people, but wouldn't say who they are or who funds them.
Unfortunately, I think we live in an era where if you go public with political views, you open yourself up to being attacked and denigrated.
One of the other politicians targeted says that explanation is ironic.
They're an organization that do nothing but attack, and yet they're hiding in the shadows.
The billboards likely cost thousands of dollars, according to Masters, and there's no limit on how much an anonymous organization like this can spend. But advertising by candidates cannot be anonymous, and there is a limit on spending.
If you're the candidate they're supporting, you get to stay perfectly clean.
Hawkins has served on council for 3 terms, and in 12 years says he's never seen anything like it.
I think there's nothing common sense about their approach to politics.
Regina residents head to the polls on November 13th. Alexander Kwan, CBC News, Regina.
It's the final day of campaigning in the U.S. before tomorrow's presidential election, and it's going down to the wire. Polls say the race is neck and neck. That's why both Kamala Harris and Donald Trump are sprinting across key swing states. They're trying to make sure their supporters get out to vote and to win over Americans who haven't yet made a choice. But in this unprecedented election, in a deeply polarized country, there's also a sense of nervous energy heading into voting day. Katie Simpson has the details from Washington.
Major security preparations are underway all over Washington, and that is because Kamala Harris, the Democratic nominee and the vice president, will be holding her election night headquarters, her celebration, she hopes, in the U.S. Capitol. There's more fencing going up around the White House, around the vice president's official residence as well. Some businesses are boarding up, and then at Howard University, major security preparations are in place and continuing to be set up in the final hours of this campaign. Harris is spending the last day of campaigning in battleground Pennsylvania, showing just how important that state is to winning this race. She's trying to deliver 2 points in her final message. One, sowing some fear about what another Trump presidency could look like, another presidency under Donald Trump, as well as offering what she feels is an optimistic alternative.
You know, when you love something, you fight for it. And that's what we're doing. And that's what we're doing. We love our country, and we are fighting for the best of who we are. And I love it. Thank you. I love you.
Donald Trump is spending the final day of the campaign hitting 3 different battleground states, and Trump is doing what Trump is known for. He's delivering a message that is not exactly the script his advisors have recommended, launching into attacks, personal attacks on his opponents as he tries to really rally his base.
So on Tuesday, stand up, you have to do it. And we have to tell Kamala that you've had enough. Kamala, we're not gonna take it anymore. Kamala, you're fired. Get the hell out of here.
Polls in swing states as well as national surveys suggest that this race remains razor thin, coming down to the final push to get out the vote. Katie Simpson, CBC News, Washington.
The weather update is brought to you by Capital Ford Lincoln. Year-end clearance is on now.
And our weather specialist, Ethan Williams, joins me now. If the weather holds, tomorrow might be perfect election-watching weather.
Yeah, exactly. Stay inside, enjoy, grab some popcorn and a drink, because, yeah, we do have some active weather starting to move in to the province over the next 24 hours or so here. It comes in the form of this snowfall warning, which has been issued for really the area around the Cypress Hills and Maple Creek. Environment Canada saying possibly upwards of 15 centimeters of snow basically around the Cypress Hills area, I think is where we're looking at that, as that the kind of higher elevations will bring that in. Could be as much as 25 centimeters, though, on the Alberta side of the border. Already that moisture beginning to move in now. Radar is picking it up mostly as rain, with a little bit of some mixing happening in there right now. And I think that's probably going to start transitioning over to snow as we get through these next 24 hours. So here's how we're thinking things are probably going to be playing out. Again, a few showers in southwestern Saskatchewan this evening, but it's really as we get into those early morning hours tomorrow, 4, 5, 6 a.m., where this starts moving in. And actually, the first area of concern will be up around Saskatoon and along the Highway 7 and Highway 16 corridors around the city. We could have some freezing rain in this area. Kind of around the Kindersley area and near the Alberta border, we start to see that change over to snow, and then that intensifies as we get through the mid-morning hours tomorrow, and this whole thing kind of starts moving to the southeast. There's no real particular pattern to how this is going to play out. You can see that this model in particular wants to expand that snowfall eastward to kind of south of Regina, but it's probably going to be hit and miss for Regina and Saskatoon if we're going to be getting rain or snow or anything at all as this whole thing starts to move through. I think probably, though, as we get through the overnight into Wednesday, we're going to start to see things diminish pretty quickly. And Wednesday, actually, we could see the sunshine return, especially for southern Saskatchewan. Next weather maker is going to be through the north, where we see a similar kind of messy mix of rain and snow as we get into early Thursday morning. And then after that, the weather taking a more quiet approach to things. Rainfall totals, again, this is from one model, and the model that's kind of showing the highest amounts here, 5 to 10 millimeters in areas where we do see this. This is suggesting that areas around Regina and the southeast could see some of that moisture. Again, snowfall-wise, I think heaviest amounts in that southwest corner, 2 to 4 otherwise, and maybe a little bit generous even around Regina and Moose Jaw. Again, we kind of just have a chance of seeing that. Winds will pick up with this as well. Could be gusting 50 to 70 tomorrow. I think they're well undershot on what you're seeing here. But after that, other than the temperatures being knocked back a little bit, things will really rapidly improve. Heading into the weekend, we see temperatures near 10 degrees once again, and that's a similar picture in Saskatoon, where again, after a messy day tomorrow and a chilly night, temperatures may get back into the double digits for Thursday and Friday even as well. So, yeah, winter not really being subtle, but it's really going to have a hard time sticking around, Sam.
I think we call that a tease.
Yes, that's right.
Thanks, Ethan.
You're welcome.
Divers from around the world come to Conception Bay, Newfoundland to see 4 wrecks that are close to shore and well preserved. The ships were loaded with iron ore when they were torpedoed and sunk by German U-boats in 1942. A pair of divers and their underwater drone found an open hatch on one of the ships, and the ships are now artificial reefs brimming with sea life. We'll be back after the break. The man behind some of Michael Jackson's most iconic songs has died at the age of 91. Quincy Jones produced that hit song called Beat It and some others off the record-breaking Thriller album by the King of Pop. It was the world's best-selling album ever. Jones had a career that spanned 7 decades. He greatly influenced the evolution of pop music. He started out as a musician, but eventually he moved into the studio where he also produced film and television. Spain has deployed more soldiers to the east of its country. They will assist in the recovery efforts from deadly floods that caused catastrophic damage last week. About 5,000 troops are on the ground to help distribute food and water. They will also help assist in damage cleanup and guard against looting. At least 217 people have died as a result of the disaster, most of them in the Valencia region. Last Tuesday, a heavy downpour of rain caused riverbanks to overflow. The wall of water swept away almost everything in its path and caught many people off guard. This is considered the deadliest storm in the country's history. And Ethan is back with one last look at your weather.
And in Regina tonight, I think we're looking at partly cloudy skies, a temperature of around the freezing mark. And then as, again, we get into those first few hours tomorrow morning, as you start to head out the door, that's when we have that chance of some rain or some snow starting to move in. Temperature going to be sticking around freezing throughout much of the day. I think by the afternoon for us, it's mostly a chance of rain by this point. The chance of snow coming back a little bit later in the evening, but no significant accumulations, I don't think. For Saskatoon, again, we're looking for partly skies, cloudy skies at midnight, flurries to start the day tomorrow, and then I think by the afternoon, that's when we have that possibility of some wet snow moving in. Again, probably not as much as southwestern Saskatchewan, Sam, but a bit of a yucky day ahead of us.
You know what? There will be some people who are super stoked.
That is true.
We will be happy for them.
Good for them.
Thanks, Ethan.
You're welcome.
And that is it for us tonight. For news anytime, you can head to cbc.ca/Sask. You can subscribe to the CBC Saskatchewan YouTube channel or download the CBC News app. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great night.